Pirate Software, the ego-driven, maleficent, fake clown as most of us know him. A person who can take no responsibility for any action that he does wrongly or poorly. A person who is desperate to make everyone believe that he is smart and he knows everything. Well, people have explained to me that he's not actually even good at coding, which is supposed to be the big thing that he does. It's still seething, absolutely seething about his fall off that happened at this point close to a year ago, honestly. And that is obviously hilarious because that fits perfectly in his character as someone who can never take an L, who can never take any responsibility. And he's still going at it. And well, he has suffered for it. I looked at his channel and, well, since the fallout, he has roughly lost 50% of his viewers and 50% of his audience on all platforms, which sadly still makes him relevant, but I mean, that is a blow. And people are still bringing all of this up constantly.
Hi, my name is Jason Thor Hall, also known as Pirate Software Online.
We just want there to be prohibit publishers from disabling a game that you paid for.
Ubisoft shut down the game's servers, rendering the game unplayable, which is normal for live service games.
He changed what we were saying the initiative is about, and he completely made up saying that it was about trying to protect single player games. So that is an advanced tactic that he pulled.
Pirate Software is a creator that is no stranger to controversy. I actually did a video on him quite a while ago talking about this huge drama he was involved in. But recently, unfortunately, he's found himself in some more drama regarding the movement Stop Killing Games. I do want to say as well, the merch shop is now open. So if you want to grab yourself some exclusive limited time merch, especially from the new Server Blight video on the main.
God, you know what I absolutely hate? It's merch where YouTubers and other personalities just put their face on it and they want you to buy it. Ah, that just never sits right to me. That seems so strange and wrong.
Main channel, the link is in the description or on screen. Now there's one thing that is more scummy than any kind of crypto shiller, and that usually is a video game company. So you might have noticed with video games there has been a very fast escalation to try to make as much money out of you as possible. We don't really have new games anymore. We've got remakes, remasters, but more importantly, loot boxes, in-game transactions, and one of my personal favorites.
To be honest, we have a lot of new games. It's just that all really bad.
Things now, for some reason, you pay like $100 to basically be able to play the game 2 days before everyone else can play it. I call that a streamer tax. I will die on that hill, but genuinely that is one of the most stupid things imaginable, especially because, you know, like, let's go back 5-10.
The irony of calling that a streamer tax is the fact that 99.999% of people who buy that are not streamers. They just buy it because they can't wait. And nowadays it's like 5 days, not 2 days. Remember the good old days when the pre-release, the pre-order was 1 day or maybe 2 days? Yeah, now it's almost a week for some games. Pretty sad.
10 years ago, special editions, deluxe editions, usually got some pretty cool stuff. I mean, yeah, okay, there were skins. There were always skins. Look at Oblivion with its horse armor. That was always the thing, fair enough. But now it really shows that companies like Blizzard and EA...
To be fair, okay, I'm gonna protect the horse armor for a second. At least it cost like $2. Unlike Blizzard's mount skin that costs 100 now, and people buy it like hotcake.
They are just so obsessed with turning a profit and making as much money as possible, while probably innovating as little as possible as well. I know I'm naming the big names here, but there are so many gaming companies out there that do not...
Bro, why even innovate in the gaming industry if you can be like Blizzard and just put another mount for sale for $100 and make literally 30 million in 1 day because people are gonna buy it? And then after a month, put another one for $100 and see how much that makes. Why innovate if you have people who are gonna buy literally any slop that you just spit out?
want to innovate. They wish they could just get you as like a little rat running on a wheel over and over, squeezing that dopamine out of you without having to actually do anything. And you keep handing over your credit card to buy some in-game currency every single time. Now, I have heard of the buzzword stop killing games, but I never really looked into it too much. But it seems to be the main focus behind it of kind of like sticking it to the man and trying to stop these huge monolithic companies just doing whatever they want. But despite the intentions sounding quite noble, not everyone is actually on board with it, especially one of the streamers, Pirate Software. Now, Stop Killing Games, or the acronym SKG, is actually an initiative.
When I first heard about it, actually, well, I still don't know my position on this, honestly. I'm not that interested in it, but I was also against it because now we have what was it? Forza that stopped closed its servers after 10 years. You know, my opinion on that, I think that's kind of okay. A show, I guess the game was dead. 5 people a month played it, and it ran for more than 10 years.
Set up and spearheaded by
But to be fair, there is a lawsuit happening over that situation. So we're gonna see how that goes.
the YouTuber Accursed Farms. If you know the channel Accursed Farms, you are a certified old head. If you don't, he's most known for this incredibly long-running machinima series called Freeman's Mind. The first episode came out 11 years ago, and it's basically just a playthrough of Half-Life 1, but Accursed Farms narrates over it in the perspective of Gordon Freeman.
Oh God! What I do? What I do?
From the shutting down.
Oh, no! We are bad people. Oh shit! That's the ceiling. Where's my helmet? No. See, this is what I'm talking about. Aliens aren't invading Freeman. You're just being paranoid.
Now, the video series that I know him from is Ross's Game Dungeon, and this was basically where he would play a game and do a full breakdown of it, the mechanics, the story, almost like kind of a narrated playthrough. He actually did a really good video on Deus Ex, and that was 8 years ago. Oh my god, we're all so old. He did a game dungeon on Deus Ex Human Revolution, and also Deus Ex Invisible War, the console one that everyone absolutely hates. I mean, I swear, like, I remember playing Deus Ex Invisible War as a kid. I did not have a problem with that game. I thought it was really cool, but I was also like 12 years old, and at that age, you're basically impressed by anything. So basically, Accursed Farms started this movement, Stop Killing Games. He was the one to establish it. I mean, a lot of people have been feeling like this for a long time, but he was the first person to actually give a title to the movement. So the entire point of Stop Killing Games, as Accursed Farm quotes, a consumer movement started to challenge the legality of publishers destroying video games that they have sold to customers. Now, the Stop Killing Games movement did actually get quite a lot of traction. At the minute, the European Citizens Initiative alone has nearly...
Bro, his camera is constantly just shaking. What the hell?
500,000 signatures. And that is an insane movement, because if you go onto Accursed Farms channel, you can tell that he's not really a huge YouTuber, especially not anymore, but still, he has created something, a movement that is a lot bigger than him, because a lot of people support this. They think that companies, especially in the gaming industry, became really greedy and just want to maximize profit while giving you as little content as possible. You know, why try to give you better experiences when, for example, there's like item stores and shops that are just churning out new skins for you to buy to feel special every 24 hours? Now, that was my little tangent on the...
But I like feeling special. If there's an $800% deal, I'm buying it. Otherwise, I'm losing money. It is what it is.
Side, that's not even the main purpose of Stop Killing Games. The main purpose is actually trying to hold video game companies accountable for basically selling games that have planned obsolescence to try and get you to buy the next title. This is obviously games that have a heavy emphasis on online services, like, for example, Call of Duty, Battlefront, Overwatch. Star Wars Battlefront 2, as you've seen recently, has had a huge player spike, which is really funny because the game is surprisingly competent. It's mostly because, you know, May the 4th and also Andor ended, and apparently that was a pretty good ending. I actually haven't watched Andor. Apparently it's one of the few Star Wars shows that's competent.
Andor is not even a Star Wars show. It doesn't have Jedi. It doesn't have this. It doesn't have that. It's just a thriller in space. So effectively, it's just a murder mystery, but instead for women and being in a rundown villa in the middle of nowhere and the woods, it's in space for men.
Competent throughout. There is a guy in the show called Kino, so I might actually watch it.
My name
is Kilo Loy.
The only problem with Star Wars Battlefront 2 at the minute, because it has such a huge player spike, EA don't really care about the game whatsoever, so it is just full to the brim with hackers. But yeah, one of the biggest problems with online services is game companies will bring out a product, and eventually, over time, which is pretty natural, people lose interest, they move on. But this then reaches the point where the owners basically go, you know what, we'll just shut down the entire servers, so now no one gets to play it, even though at the time when the game came out, you probably paid full price for it. One instance I remember of a very popular game actually shutting down its servers was all the way back when Mass Effect 3 came out. We are going back to old head era here. But
Is Pyro Cynical white in Game of Thrones?
Mass Effect 3 was basically the first Mass Effect to have any kind of like multiplayer mode. But then they actually enacted something called Sunset Multiplayer, which meant that they were, you know, kind of quietly winding down the servers and you couldn't play the game anymore. Oh no, wait a minute. This was back in 2012. So in fact, the servers for Mass Effect 3 are still up. That Sunset thing I talked about was talking about shutting down the servers for the Wii U on the Nintendo network. So that was basically Nintendo's choice, if anything. I believe that you can actually still
Isn't that still okay? So, as far again, I haven't super looked into it, but I think it's kind of dude. We're never gonna get multiplayer games if every company has to maintain the servers, update the game, and blah blah blah, do things like this and that, so people keep playing the game. It's not gonna happen. Okay. If that actually gets forced on the games industry, you're just never going to see a multiplayer game again, because every game company is going to be fearful of making a multiplayer game that dies, and then you have to be responsible for it for, you know, infinity and beyond. And some of you are probably saying, "But that's just one game. What's the big deal? They're yeah, but they're going to make a new one and a new one and a new one, and soon they have 50 servers that they constantly have to keep on running." Kind of bad.
Play Mass Effect multiplayer to this day, despite the fact that the game came out well over 10 years ago. Now, one example that people love to use here about just being completely backhanded.
Now, granted, if the solution for this, I think, would be pretty simple, and that would be just allow players to make their own servers and connections. Like, the company doesn't even have to host a server list of servers you can connect, but, you know, that people have the ability to make their own servers and whatnot. That would be a decent solution, in my opinion. But
by a video game company is Overwatch. If you bought Overwatch day one, you'd be paying around £40 to £60. For the Americans, that's like about 13 cheeseburgers, and that obviously depends on the version of the game that you got. If you bought the super deluxe special edition where you probably got some gold guns or something, I think you got you got a Widowmaker skin, a unique Widowmaker skin.
Yeah.
It's a shame that Widowmaker sucks to play now. Now also keep in mind as well, the first Overwatch had no single player mode attached to it. It was online only. So less than 10 years in the game being out, unlike Mass Effect 3, Blizzard decided to shut down the servers for the game. Now I get it, Overwatch 2 is free to play, I'm really happy for you, but there are people that spent so many cheeseburgers buying the first Overwatch, and they basically have nothing to show for it apart from, oh my god, wow, bro, he's got this skin that you can get 8 years ago and you can't get now. Oh, you know that the same people that will brag about that and think it was a worthwhile purchase are the people that are trying to hunt down every single skin in the new Doom the Dark Ages. By the way, I saw this video on YouTube showing off all the
there's skins in Doom the Dark Ages? Wow.
skins in the new Doom game, and I thought, wow,
Okay.
this is quite a long video. Surely there's a lot of skins. There aren't. There's like 3 skins you get in the game by playing the game and beating it on different difficulties. The other like 7 or 8 skins are basically from buying graphics cards or buying pizzas. That is not a joke, by the way. It's basically this new wave of marketing
Dude, this graphics card shit has been insane.
that is just terrible for consumers. Like, I get it. Cosmetics, it's amazing, and companies are soy-facing over the fact that we're hooked on it because it's dopamine. I get to stand out in the game. Unless everyone else buys the skin, then I don't stand out. Then I need to wait for the other skin to...
That is hilarious because this is not actually how the mindset works. The funny part is, people don't even give a shit about the fact that everyone else is using the same skin. they just buy the skin and everyone else has the same skin and no one cares. They're all happy. Because no one really cares about anyone else. They just care that they have the thing that's sparkly. And that's enough.
drop so I can stand out again. And now everyone else has bought the skin. It is just a self-fulfilling.
Only rich people think like that, by the way. It's not true that no one thinks like that. It's just actual rich people care about this stuff. A great example is Saudi Arabia, and well, everyone's driving a Lambo, so it's driving a Lambo is kind of worthless. So they need to find other extravagant ways to make their cars stand out and special, like number plates with unique one-letter numbers and whatnot.
Prophecy. I still remember when like the Mrs. Incredible skin dropped for Fortnite. Every little Zoomie was buying that game just because she had a fat ass. I mean, if you want to become really, really
I'm not even a Zoomer, but I would buy that shit for a fat ass. Duh. Who doesn't want to tap Mrs. Incredible?
cynical, get it? I said the word, get it? You don't really own anything. You know, like for example, when you go onto Amazon or you go onto a streaming service, like you stream a show, you buy a film from Amazon, you're not buying it. It's just tied to your account. And if there's any kind of licensing changes or you can't, you know, watch this in your own country, tough luck. One really good example I have here, talking more about streaming, and I absolutely despise this, is, for example, HBO Max. They have some great shows like The Last of Us. I'm sure there's some other stuff on there as well. But the point is, I can't watch Max unless I basically use a VPN and then log into like a friend's account.
By the way, I'm not seeing a lot of pirate software things currently, okay? I miss pirate software, okay? Should we watch a cheating video about him again? They were fun.
And then in the UK, we have Max in the UK, but it's called Now TV.
Well, in the UK, you also have metal detectors in school because knives.
Is owned by Sky, Rupert Murdoch and his, like, you know, kind of his children, and they're all from Succession, basically, the cast of Succession. I can watch Max shows through Now TV, but then if I travel to another country, I get region locked to the point that even if I have a VPN on, it knows I've got one, so then I can't watch the thing that I've paid for just because I'm getting a flight to another country. It's just really backwards, really anti-consumer. I also remember this one time as well when the 28 Days Later, the zombie film that's getting another sequel pretty soon, 28 years later, that recently was changing licensing hands. So 28 Days Later, you couldn't find it anywhere. You couldn't find it on any streaming service. And that was gone for about 2 to 3 months, I think. You can find it now on like Disney Plus or Amazon and stuff. But there was a point where unless you basically had it as a DVD or you...
Wait! 28 years later it's already out? I haven't watched it. Oh no, I love that movie. Well, movies.
Pirated it, there is no way that you would be able to watch that film. And I get it, you know, streaming is security, online services are security, but at the same time, that really goes to show that, like, if companies want, or for whatever reason, they can basically just take property away from you that you basically paid for. Now, I get it, I'm not going to be some boomer that's like, well, actually, when 28 Days Later went offline, or when this one game went offline, I had it on disc, I had it on Blu-ray, so I'm actually the alpha. I'm not saying that. I think carrying around plastic to make sure you can actually engage with something is really stupid, unless you're a collector. That is a different kind of autism I'm not going to get into. Now, I'm doing a bit of a tangent here, but focusing more on the video games. Another example, a couple months ago, Ubisoft actually put out a statement that they shut down online activity for a racing game called The Crew. And then they actually said in the statement, unironically, not even as a bit, players should get comfortable with not owning their games. I've seen this...
Okay, to be fair, Ubisoft has said that multiple times. This is not even the new one, okay?
Statement that gets like...
And there's a reason Ubisoft is dying, and that's because they're idiots who say things like this unironically.
Parroted a lot online, kind of semi-sarcastically, basically saying, you will own nothing and be happy. I think we're pretty close to that at the minute. Now, I know I sound like a bit of a negative Nelly. Maybe this isn't so many games, but the Stop Killing Games movement actually did an investigation of 700 titles that had some form of online requirement for play, and they found out that 40% of these games are just completely dead. No support from the devs, and they are literally unable to be played. And then another 40% were...
Oh, yeah. And the thing about the support for devs is, okay, so devs make a game and devs have to update it for infinity now? Yeah, that's even worse.
Risk of being shut down completely. And then only 2% of all of these games that were investigated actually ended up having services that were being supported by...
Again, what happens if the company shuts down? What happens if the company shuts down? What then? Can they not shut down?
The developers using an end-of-life plan, like an actual roadmap. Sounds like I'm talking about someone in a retirement home or something. And then there was another 14% as well, where the community, the players, have actually managed to keep the game up and running by themselves. Which, if anything, reminds me like how Bethesda will release games and then the community basically has to do mod patches for them. I know it's not the same kind of thing. We're talking about online play here, but still, I feel like with video games, there is a huge group of people that take it upon them.
I think whenever anyone says anything negative about Bethesda, I think that's good. I think that's righteous.
Themselves to fix a game when it should not be their responsibility. I respect it, I commend it, but it's just sad the situation we're in now. So what Stop Killing Games and Accursed Farms are trying to do is get as much support as possible through as many online signatures as they can. Will this do anything? I don't know. The problem is it's not like there's a legal requirement here. I know there's some exceptions, like for example with the UK government, if like something gets so many signatures, Parliament has to like at least try to acknowledge it. They don't have to do anything about it, they can just say no. But I think there's like some requirement they have to acknowledge it. With this, it's more of the private.
Yes, that is true. They have to look at it in Senate or whatever the hell they have. Someone probably puts on a powdered wig and then someone gets stabbed.
Sector, so they might just look the other way. I think the problem is the only real way to like make these companies think, wait, we need to change what we're doing, is if people, you know, stop buying video games or stop buying microtransactions in video games, but they're not going to. And I mean, it's really hard to. What's the alternative? Oh yeah, I'm not going to buy video games anymore. Their practices are like really toxic. Instead, I'm going to browse on Reddit. You could also support indie games.
That sounds even worse.
As well. Like, for example, I've been playing through this game recently called White Knuckle. It's like a climbing game with horror elements in it. It's really good. Game is very unfair, though. 0 out of 10.
The fuck?
Anyways, but being serious, if they get enough signatures, they basically could challenge the existing laws that support this practice on the basis of consumer hostility, or they could also get enough signatures that the government might have to actually acknowledge this and make some changes.
Dude, why do people think that the UK is gonna change anything, okay? It's the UK. They literally allowed Amber Heard to win against Johnny Depp. They literally did that. And they didn't allow him to challenge her a second time. It's stupid. Okay? The whole UK is a failed experiment.
Like, for example, you know, the EU government, they've made some amazing changes. Like, for example, with the iPhone, they now can't use lightning cables. They have to use USB-C. And that's it. That's all I can think of. I don't even use iPhone. I'm just sick and tired of my mate asking me when I'm out with him, oh, do you have a lightning cable with you? It's like, no, I'm on Android. No, I don't. Now, from the sounds of it, their campaign in the signatures is doing really, really well. They actually managed to acquire a citizens initiative with the support garnered, so they could possibly take all of this to the EU, which is basically every country in Europe except the UK. I'm so happy about Brexit. I love it. I love it. If it wasn't for Brexit, I'd probably still be in Sweden right now. What a great law. What a great law. I love Brexit. Thank you for that. Now, if this becomes a requirement for the EU, this could be huge because the EU is basically...
Oh yeah, I forgot Brexit even happened.
One of the biggest markets for gaming. Mostly because if you're in the UK, you probably play FIFA or Warzone, and if you're in Germany or Poland, you're racist and you play Counter-Strike. And obviously, it's reached a point right now where the government has to step in because private companies, as we've seen in basically any sector in the world, they won't regulate themselves. Why would they do that? Because regulating yourself usually means sacrificing profits. Now, this sounds like a fair request to not actually kill video games, but Pirate Software, who, like I've said before, I've talked about on the channel, he was very against this. So if you know Pirate Software, he is a streamer and a game dev, and he used to work for Blizzard.
God damn. 14 out of 22 minutes watched. I mean, we did the intro. Ho
And also Amazon Game Studios, and that was before setting up his own indie dev company. So Pirate Software actually came out with 2 videos basically in opposition of Ross and his entire point of the project. The thing that I know most about Pirate Software is he has the most unprecedented streaming stamina I have ever seen in my life. Basically, the guy streams most days of the week, usually doing 11, 12-hour streams at a time. I just don't understand that.
No one cares.
that stamina. Like, I respect it. Dude, I do like a 5-6 hour stream. I want to sleep for 2 days. In the first video he put out titled Stop Killing Games, he basically outlines his reasons for not supporting the initiative. I do want to give context here as well. This is a very old video. This came out around 9 months ago. I'm obviously not trying to dig up any old drama here. The reason why I'm talking about it is because Accursed Farms only actually responded to this 9-month-old video pretty recently, a couple of days ago, but we will get into that. Basically, his main argument points are, first of all, this is the way the industry works, and it's a standard practice to shut games down after an X amount of years.
On March 31st,
It is true. That is a standard practice, but that obviously doesn't make it right. That is stupid.
2024, Ubisoft shut down the game's servers, rendering the game unplayable, which is normal for live service games. The only thing that I can see in here that could be a problem is if they post it as not an online-only experience. But everything that I found online shows that the game was always marketed as online only. If you're going to be buying an online-only game, that means it can only run when it's online. And if the servers need to shut down in the future, far in the future...
Wait, that sentence right there, he says shit like that constantly, and some people are like, holy crap, this guy's like Asmongold. Well, they are similar, but they're both idiots.
It makes sense to me for the access to that game to be...
Say something obvious, like, for example, this is a circle, and some people are like, genius. It's insane.
cut if it's online only.
Secondly, he basically says it's too expensive to expect companies to be able to keep servers up and running forever.
And there are some people that'll say, well, just make it all single player. Well, I've explained that that doesn't make any sense in the first place. If you're making it all single player, you'd have to carve off all of that, and it's developer time and money. When you already have sequels out and the game has basically no players left anyway, it makes more sense to just move on. I don't find that to be a problem from the developer perspective, and I understand that people find that to be a problem from the player perspective.
But there is also a point as well that tries to contradict this on the Stop Killing Games website. No, we are not asking that at all, that being running games indefinitely. We're in favor of publishers ending support for a game whenever they choose. What we are asking is that they implement an end-of-life plan to modify or patch the game so that it is run on customer systems with no further support from the company being necessary. They then list the number of games that have...
Oh, that's what I said. That seems reasonable. Because I remember that Pirate Software video. I watched it even. And I was mostly for it. Again, he does say some stupid shit like, you know, at the start. But the people who are saying, oh, they want to shut down the servers. Well, these people should completely redesign the game now so it works on single player. That's pretty insane, okay? You understand you're literally demanding that they redesign a game on an engine that's probably no longer in use with people who no longer know how to use it, and completely... That's like almost... That is slightly less expensive than making a new game. That is not a reasonable thing to ask. But, you know, adding something that people can, you know, keep playing the game online after the official servers die down, even if it's peer-to-peer connection, that's completely legit.
Implemented this, like for example Gran Turismo Sport, Mega Man X Drive, Caller's Bane, showing that it is possible for companies to do this. And thirdly, Pirate Software claims that this will basically hurt companies in the long run. Developers will basically stop making live service games if they have to bend the knee to these changes.
It would, but again, that's not the point of this. So the thing is, he's just if you haven't figured it out because it's still here, there, and whatnot. He's completely misconstruing the point of the original thing that was unveiled, and he's just now saying things that no one even wants to argue about because they themselves know it's not good. And yet he's just making it all about his imaginary point. Effectively, he's completely misrepresenting the thing that he's talking about. Intentionally or not, no one knows.
If you try to tell me that every studio needs to run their live service game indefinitely or not want to run one at all, then no one's going to run them. And we're going to miss out on adventures like Final Fantasy XIV and even though I don't play anymore, League of Legends or any other live service game.
But also, if you go onto the Stop Killing Games website, this is something they've tried to address as well. The regulations we are seeking would only apply when companies decide to end support for games. At that time, they would need to be converted to have either offline or private hosting modes. Until then, companies can continue running games any way they see fit. And in response to the question of money, Stop Killing Games also says this: the costs associated with implementing this requirement can be very small, if not trivial. Furthermore, it often takes a company with large resources at its disposal to even construct games of this nature in the first place. Small developers with constrained budgets are less likely to be contributing to this problem. So again, this was a very old video that Pirate Software put out like 9 months ago. It obviously got a bit of traction at the time, but then as the internet is the internet, everyone just basically forgets after a week. 9 months after this entire ordeal went down, Accursed Farms actually commented on the situation involving Pirate Software in a recent live stream. And you can tell from his tone of voice and his energy compared to other announcement videos, you can tell it's taken a toll on him. Like, he is just not happy. Now, what Accursed Farms is accusing Pirate Software of doing here is apparently just flat out lying. That being about the nature of...
Pirate Software does do that. When we covered Pirate Software more about his lies, I actually received emails from people who do work in coding, the games industry and whatnot, and they effectively just told me, hey, what he's talking about X in gaming is complete bullshit. And, you know, if I can explain why. And I'm like, for what? Fucking explain away. And they do. And it's like, oh, does Pirate Software even know what the hell he's talking about, ever? One of the greatest examples of him completely not understanding what the hell he's even talking about was and blockchain gaming. Yeah, blockchain gaming sounds horrible, I know, because everything blockchain or NFT sounds bad in general. But there are actually reasons why games could use the blockchain as a database. There are legitimate reasons that are not just money and greed and whatnot for using it. And Pirate Software literally came on streams and said, no one should ever use blockchain gaming, blockchain as a database for gaming, because it doesn't work. And then he said, the blockchain does not allow you to change anything. So if you get hacked, it's done. It cannot be reverted, which is a complete lie. He called the blockchain a ledger, as in you can add things. I don't remember how he described it, but it was a complete, it was not true. If you use the blockchain as a database, you can always see what has happened. So there's no way. So if someone gets scammed and their items just get ported somewhere else, you can just add a new line that re-adds those items. You cannot delete the existing thing that already was done, but you can add a new line that fixes everything. And Pirate Software doesn't understand this because, and this was hilarious, the guy who was explaining me this stuff said, it looks like Pirate Software is talking about this, and the only thing he has done is read the first sentence of the Wikipedia article about blockchain gaming. And I go to the Wikipedia article about blockchain gaming, and wait, it's true! The guy is making points that's literally the first 2 sentences of the wiki. He didn't even read the full wiki, and yet he's pretending that he knows everything. It's absolutely insane. Like, Pirate Software has absolutely no problem as long as he can just sell the idea that he's smart. He doesn't care about what he talks about.
Stop Killing Games in order to put his own point across. So Accursed Farms actually believes that Pirate Software recognized that he couldn't lie about the contents of the movement, since he believes that they were pretty black and white with the way that they outlined everything, even having a whole website with a dedicated FAQ section stating their demands. So according to Accursed Farms, apparently Pirate Software twisted the premise of Stop Killing Games from games should have an end-of-life plan, changing that to every company needs to keep all their servers up indefinitely, or they'll be breaking the law.
We just want there to be prohibit publishers from disabling a game that you paid for. And this would be making end-of-life plans mandatory for games that require it. That's it. So there's no like wiggle room on like, well, I'm for this, but against this, and then your alternative won't save any games.
So it seems that Accursed Farms thinks that Pirate Software is pulling a bit of a straw man here, not really being accurate with the arguments and making up his own points to
Yeah, after hearing this and knowing what he said, definitely.
basically make it easy.
But if you're the smartest person on the world as Pirate Software, I mean, why would you read anything? You just know things.
To win in a debate. So Accursed Farms claims again that Pirate Software apparently just completely made up that Stop Killing Games was about saving single-player games that have a multiplayer attached to them.
Pirate Software, I'm thinking again. I think part of him realized he couldn't change what was written in the documents. If he didn't report what was in the actual initiative itself, somebody would see that and he would get called out on it. So what he did is he changed what we were saying the initiative is about, and he completely made up saying that it was about trying to protect single-player games. That was made up. We never brought that up anywhere. In fact, we had to add that in afterwards.
And Ross also goes on to say that this was a much smaller reason than why Stop Killing Games was set up in the first place. The majority of games that are multiplayer and single player that shut down their servers, you do still have the option to play them in single player. Like, for example, Far Cry 3. The servers have been shut down a long time ago. And that sucks. The multiplayer was fun. I especially like the part where if you got MVP, you could do like a funny taunt to the MVP of the enemy team.
Hurry up!
What?
Let's play!
Ooh. I did not know this.
But yeah, those servers shut down in 2022, but you can still play the campaign for yourself.
Well, anyway, the point of this is Pirate Software is horrible, and I hope he never returns truly, okay? That was Pyro Live. Yay, 10 out of 10, bye!